Good evening. Sorry I'm a bit late, bit out of breath, but yeah, I'm here. So we're going to talk about Subarus. I'm going to hopefully answer your questions about Subarus. Anything Subaru related, anything Subaru tuning, modifications, what works, what doesn't. Any questions regarding mapping, tips, tricks, you name it. Ask the question and I will do my very best to answer it. To give you a bit of an insight as to why I'm a bit wheezy this evening, I'll probably play you a little video just to show you what I've been doing this afternoon. It's probably the easiest way. So yeah, that thing was pretty wild. The exhaust coming out the top meant that I couldn't run any extraction. So yeah, eyes were watering, and methanol's not really very good for inhaling. So anyway, yeah, Subaru. So if you're new here, welcome. Where have you been? This is episode 55, I think. If you're not new, then welcome back. And if you're not watching this live, then if you've got a question on replay, pop it in the comments below and I will try and get back to every single one. It's been a bit hectic recently with the start of event season and shows and races and those sort of things. So it's been quite difficult over the last few weeks to sort of keep on top of everything. Sort of emails, and yeah, it's a bit crazy. So if you've got a question, by all means put it in the live chat, put a Q at the beginning of it, and I can see whether I can answer it. Hopefully I will. If you haven't got a question, then say hi, say where you're from, what you're driving, because it's the session is about you. If I haven't got any questions, then I'll just finish the session. But if you've got questions, then by all means ask away. I can see we got a few of the regulars, some of the Academy members on board as well. Zed, hi Zed. Shane, Colin, man, hi mate. Mel, good evening. Shane, Steve, Andrew, Wolfie. Right, okay, first question there. So let me kick off with that question. That might spur some other questions. General question for Subaru EJ engines with electronic throttle. What's normal behaviour for warm-up? My Forester SGI starts at approximately 1200 RPM, then jumps up to 1600 after a few seconds. Yeah, that's pretty normal. Some of the BLZs and whatever, they'll start up higher than that, even sort of sometimes up towards 2000 RPM. It's just part of the process to warm it up. If you give the throttle a little blip, it'll settle back down to probably about 1200 and sort of warm up quicker than a normal car, or quicker than most normal cars anyway. Subarus are very quick to warm up. But yeah, that's entirely normal. I said, my absurd and odd questions and theories in the Carberry Discord page. I'll have a look at that in a bit. I've literally come in through the door, scoffed my dinner down, and was late for starting this. But I'll have a look at that and I'll answer it. If you're wondering what the Discord group is, it's for the Academy members. So if you're interested in joining, learning a bit more about mapping, either tuning your own cars or tuning other people's cars, then there's a monthly membership for that, £5.99. Gives you access to loads of extra videos, loads of other live streams, a Discord group for questions and answers, and there's I lose count of how many members there are over there now, but it's well over 100. So if you're interested in self-tuning, then click on the join button below, and you should be presented with some options. All right. Right, Ankit. Hi, Ankit. Hi, Duncan. What's the ideal cylinder compression readings for a new EJ207 short block at around 500 miles? Does the cylinder compression increase as the braking mileage go up? Great question. Ideal, generally, like if you're doing a compression check, you should do it on a warm engine, and you should jack the throttle open if you can. Because that will give correct readings, but generally sort of 150 to 170 psi per cylinder is ideal. Anything below 100, you've got a real issue that needs investigating, and particularly imbalances between the cylinders are what you need to be looking out for. So if you've got 3 at 150 and 1 at 110, there might be an issue there. It might be valves, it might be rings, but it'd be worth investigating. But yeah, as the rings bed into the cylinder, the compression normally goes up a little bit. Not a huge amount, but it does go up a bit. Right. TGV delete. Hi, Craig. TGV delete. Do you block the hole left between the cylinders? Very good question. Obviously, I block the holes at the end. Generally speaking, if I'm just taking the butterflies out, I'll leave the rod there, so it's not really a restriction. But if you're taking the rod out and welding the ends at on the actual end of the TGV stacks, then it's probably a good time to get the interior hole welded up as well. I certainly wouldn't put grub screws or anything like that in there, because the huge danger that they'd work their way out, and obviously they're only going to go in one place, and that's not going to be pretty. But it's not going to do a huge amount of damage or huge amount of issue or cause a huge issue if you don't block it. But I probably would, and get them welded up. Evening, Patrick. Right. Okay. Hi, Steve. Hi, Duncan. Hope you're well. Yes, I am very well. Although that V-Storm was doing its best to damage me this afternoon, there were no silencers on that as well. It was humongously loud, and once the anti-lock was set up, yeah, really loud. What is Carberry and how does it work on a standard ECU? Right, Carberry was a project done by someone on the Rum Raider forums. Oh God, it was probably 12, 13 years ago, whereby they were trying to adapt the standard ECU to run on a speed density basis, i.e. disregarding the MAF sensor. Because the MAF sensor will only read up to a certain point. And generally speaking, on a Subaru, without changing the sizes of the pipework, it would only allow up to about 420 horsepower through the standard ECU. So Carberry was kind of brought about by adapting various things like the Subaru Group N rally ROM that they had using the standard ECU, and making it speed density. So there's all kinds of magic behind the scenes that Cart Bibbles put in there. Works incredibly well. There's been loads of iterations of it. I think the latest version is 4.2, but it's on a 16-bit ECU, so a non-drive-by-wire ECU. So it allows for some extra toys as well, like a slightly better launch control, and switchable anti-lag, and with the 4.2 version there's things like flex fuel, flat shift, those sort of things. It's a great adaptation of the standard ECU, but it does have its issues, because they're trying to cram a lot of information or a lot of functionality within what is essentially a 192 kilobyte file. Some things are slightly slimmed down, some things are slightly disregarded altogether. So it's not without its issues. And if you're self-tuning for the first time, I certainly wouldn't recommend starting on Carberry, because it is quite complicated, and it's far better, in my opinion, to start tuning using the MAF sensor in the normal standard sort of setup of the ROM. Understand that. Once you understand that, going the next step to Carberry, if you wanted to go that step, is a lot easier to sort of get your head around. On the later ECUs, the 32-bit ECUs, there's other mods that do the same sort of thing, like Dime Mod and Merc Mod, that add that functionality. ECU Tech also has it, which is what I use for speed density on the later cars if they're needed. Right. I hope that answered the question, Steve. Right. Okay. Did a compression test on a warm engine, but readings came out around 108 to 110. Range within all cylinders. It's possibly a little bit on the low side. It might be worth doing a leak down test to see whether the valve seats are leaking, or whether it's actually piston ring related. So if you're pressurizing the cylinder with compressed air, and a leak down test will tell you what the leakage is, and you can also hear whether it's coming out the inlet side or the exhaust side. And try and track down what the issue is. I don't know whether your heads were rebuilt or the valves relapped, but if you've got a compression issue, then it could be rings or valves. Right. Okay, Nicholas, hi Duncan, currently tuning my friend's WRX 2007 WRX EJ255, want to retrofit cruise control. Do you have any advice on that? I am not sure whether the ROM file itself has got any definitions in there for cruise control. Some of the JDM stuff did, but whether you can find the definitions for it, it would be difficult. There's kind of 8 fields, generally around 8 fields within the ROM that control the maximum and minimum speeds that you can set for cruise control. It's not easy to find those sort of locations. Retrofit. What would my advice be? Try and find an ECU of the same sort of year that has it, and see whether it's possible to get that ECU into that car. Is probably where I'd start with that, I think. Okay, currently running on Merc Mod with stock peripherals for now. Again, I've no idea whether Merc Mod will allow for cruise control, whether even there are inputs into the ECU for the cruise up, cruise down and cancel, or for the brake cancel or the clutch cancel. Unless they're in the standard wiring loom, which I would doubt, then it's going to be a very big project. Boom, 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 boom. Right. Wamono, Alex, hi. Does diameter of fuel pressure regulated pipes matter when I'm having an unstable fuel learning percentage? It's up and down and not stable. Do you mean the fuel lines coming out of the fuel pressure egg? It could matter, but generally dash 6 is enough for most cars, unless you're going big power, in which case you kind of have to go dash 8. If the vacuum takeoff for that is not very accurate or good, then that could cause issues. But it could be lots of different things that are affecting that. It could be the injector scaling, it could be the MAF, it could be injector latency, it could be an awful lot of issues that are causing that. If you sign up on the Academy and upload your ROM on there and some logs, then I do, as part of the Academy, do a review your logs sort of session once a month, where I sort of go through your data logs and actually give feedback on your file. Might be something that's of interest to you. Alright, bear with me a second. Right, question about EJ20Y JDM legacy engines, more specifically their stock tune from JDM. I understand they're really lean for EU fuel. Are you aware about the tunes on these engines? They're not really lean for EU fuel, but they've got, I was going to swear then, alright, let's swear anyway, they've got shitloads of ignition timing that on UK fuel, like 99 RON, are borderline safe. On EU fuel, which is 98 RON, it's even more unsafe. It's not that they're lean, it's because there's too much ignition timing. Because the engines are high compression on the JDM maps in Japan with Japanese quality fuel, they can get away with high ignition timing. They don't run lean, they're kind of sort of normal Subaru map, which is kind of 10.7, 10.8 to 1. So not lean, it's rich by most people's standards, but it's just too much ignition timing. You can make them less critical by putting thicker head gaskets on there to lower the compression, or changing the map to take out probably 2 or 3 degrees of ignition timing that will sort of bring it into safety. Right, John. Hi, John. You've purchased a 2007 Legacy 3-litre Spec B. Spec from the factory ProDrive Performance Pack. Is it worth mapping further or leaving as is? Normally aspirated Legacies, they don't gain an awful lot. I'm not sure what the ProDrive Performance Pack is, but my guess is they've just played with a little bit of the drive-by-wire throttle setup to make it more responsive, and that's probably about it. If you're in doubt on it, then pop it on the dyno, see whether it compares to what the figures are that they're suggesting it should be. But there isn't a lot of room for playing in those anyway. So compared to a standard map and an optimized custom map, you're probably 10-15 horsepower at the most. So there's not a lot, and I'm shooting myself in the foot. It's not worth the money that it costs to do that, to pay for someone else to do it, for those sort of gains. If you're doing it yourself, then why the hell not? Why wouldn't you? But paying someone £600-700 to map the car is probably not worth it. Right, let's. Okay, according to the service manual, it has plugs on the wiring harness. Okay, it may well in the harness, but whether it does actually in the ECU, don't know. But yeah, if you get the steering wheel installed and the different brake switch or clutch switch, if it needs that input, then you might be able to see whether those are actually triggering anything in the ECU. Next level mechanics. Hi, I think you're a first-time question asker. Is it recommended to replace the valve springs to reduce valve float? Is there any other benefits? Yeah, well, that's all it is, to stop the valve bounce. And yeah, it does a good job of that. It does create a bit more wear on the camshaft, but very marginal on that. Yeah, it is, but generally speaking, you don't need to do that unless you're sort of pushing the power up, or you've got a built engine where you're able to take the rev limiter up. It depends on the year of the car as well. Boom, boom. Right. Okay, if I change the ignition, does the fuel delivery change also? I'm not sure that I understand quite what you're asking, but I'll answer what I think you're asking. If you're changing the ignition timing, then if it's making the burn more effective, then the air fuel ratio out the exhaust will essentially lean out a little bit, because if it's burning all of what's in there more efficiently, then there will be less fuel in the exhaust for the sensor to measure. If that's what you're asking, great. If it's not, then give me a bit more information and I'll try and help. You'd ask that, Neil. Hello, mate. No, they are crazy at the moment up there, crazy busy, and yeah, it's yeah, it's coming. Right, Wes, what's the process for downloading the ROM on a 2003 JDM Legacy GT through ECU Flash? I've connected the green test connectors and tried ECU type, but it keeps bringing an error. Firstly, make sure that your Tactrix cable is properly plugged in. Because of where it is on the JDM Legacy, it's quite easy to kick it or not have it properly seated in there. But yeah, the test mode connectors for that, there are two above the ECU down in the passenger footwell, and two on the driver's side in the right hand side, or on where it will be a JDM. So the right hand side kick plate on the right hand side near your throttle pedal. So if both of those are connected, then it will read, but you need to be downloading using the 512 kilobyte file definition. Off the top of my head, on ECU Flash, it will be Legacy GT, Forester STI, 32-bit file. So you need to make sure that both of those sets of test mode connectors are connected. Yeah, Christmas is coming rapidly. Right, EJ205 misfires under load, progressively getting worse the higher the gear, normally above 4,000. Don't want to just pull out the parts cannon. How would you approach this? I'll check the plugs to start with, see whether you've got a dodgy plug or a plug gap that's not right, or an electrode that's cracked. While you're doing that, obviously visually inspect the coil packs, see whether the fins on the coil packs are not sort of blown out and expanded, because that's a surefire signal that one of them is maybe less than optimal. But it could be something like fuel starvation if it's doing it sort of all the way up through the gears, or continuing at higher revs. So it could be fuel. Wideband on it and check to see whether the fuel's going mega lean. So obvious things to check on that will be vacuum hose on the fuel pressure regulator. Make sure that's firmly in place and not split. Make sure the fuel pump's in good nick, but a wideband will tell you whether it's going lean. If it isn't going lean, then I'll be going down the spark plug route. But certainly don't try and ignore it or drive through it. Right, Nikos, what's your opinion on high compression builds? So I used to run on my 2005 W8 9.2 to 1, JDM pistons and closed deck block. Yeah, it would. If you've got the quality of fuel to do it, then yeah, 9.2 is fine. If you're struggling with fuel quality, then lower compression is an awful lot easier to work with, and then you can just make up the difference with a bit more boost. You lose a little bit in the responsiveness, sort of part throttle, but it's worth it for longevity, because it's frustrating trying to map or set up a car that's high compression and on low quality fuel. Yeah, the other connector is above the ECU. I have no idea why they did it on the Legacy. It's the only one they've ever done it on, but they're generally tucked under the metal plate that's in the passenger footwell. So keep the other ones in the driver's side kick plate connected, and then just either wire a switch onto those two above the passenger ECU, or just connect them when you're wanting to read the ROM. But you know, once you find them, you'll know what they are. Right, planning to swap out injectors from Pinks on your Classic to 750cc, as wanting to push about 1.8 bar near the top end. Okay, yeah. Should be just as fuel remap. Yeah, probably. But if you're going to be pushing the boost up higher, then you'll need, the changes to the boost control. You'll need changes to ignition timing, because if it's not been mapped to be up there, then the map is unlikely to be tested for those sort of boost levels. So yeah, I'd say it's a tweak to the map, but all elements of it would need to be tweaked. Okay, 100 ROM because it was on OEM JDM pistons, cracked to ring around at 1.8 bar. Yeah, you were pushing your luck with those pistons. The JDM pistons are strong-ish, but yeah, if you're running that kind of boost, then ultimately it doesn't take a huge amount of things to be not quite 100%, and you've got an issue. But yeah, high compression build. If you're running on 100 RON, yeah, no problem. Be a bit of an animal. Sharpest Maximus. How are we doing time-wise? Right, okay. Any experience with the adapter for connecting 3-inch exhaust to 2.5-inch downpipe or vice versa? I think Grimsby do one. Worth it if I want to go 3-inch catback exhaust. Yeah, if you want to go 3-inch catback exhaust, but the real restriction is the 2.5-inch downpipe. So if you can take that to 3-inch sports cat to keep it legal, or high flow cat, whatever you want to term it as, and then you won't need the adapter. I certainly wouldn't be putting the adapter 3-inch down to 2.5. But if you're stuck with running the original downpipe, then yeah, it works well. It's a nice option, but you won't get the extra power that a 3-inch exhaust would give you. Map levels 1.67 bar, mid-range and link ECU, full boost control. Okay, engine was built for previous owner, 2.3 bar. Okay, so the engine can take it, but the map will need check-in, will need adapting to suit the boost that you want to read, Neil. You can't just hope that just because the engine was running that boost, that if you put that boost through the map that was set up for 1.67, 1.8 is quite a bit more boost, and the ignition timing might need to be quite a lot less. The fueling might be different. I certainly wouldn't risk an engine that's obviously a very capable and strong engine. I wouldn't risk that for the sake of not getting it checked or tweaked. Boom, 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 boom. Right, opinion on a stock exhaust with a catless downpipe of 350 horsepower on EJ25. Yeah. Obviously, you're going to lose power with the stock exhaust. So, don't assume that a 350 horsepower turbo is going to give you 350 horsepower with that setup. You may well need to spec a 400 horsepower turbo just to give you the option to allow for the losses from the exhaust. Whenever a turbo is spec'd, if it's a 400 horsepower turbo, then that's 400 horsepower with a front mount with an exhaust that's not restricting it anyway, so a full decat exhaust. And all the boxes ticked. So, anything that you're putting in that could be restricting the airflow, like a cat, 2 cats, the middle resonator box on a standard exhaust, the standard back boxes, all of those things will just knock off the potential power from a turbo, top mount, those sort of things. So 400 horsepower turbo with that setup could well make 350. Sorry, don't give another question. I remembered. Hello, Steve. I might charge for the questions soon. You spoke about octane booster. If your fuel is over 2 weeks old or so, what one do you recommend? 2 weeks you should be absolutely fine, but if you're leaving the car for a month or so, then the octane, particularly because most of our fuels now are boosted with ethanol, it tends to evaporate or attract water and reduce octane over time. If I'm leaving the car for a couple of weeks, I always leave it empty so that I have to go and put fresh fuel in. That would be my tip, rather than relying on octane boosters. But if you're desperate to do it, then chuck a litre of methanol in there and just enjoy that. You shouldn't need mapping for 1 litre of methanol. Most of the little bottles of magic sauce, I think, are pretty worthless. Right, okay, let me go back up. There was a question I missed, I think. No. Oh, okay. Also, can you recommend Bosch the injector that's fairly bolt-on? All of them, you tend to have to change the wiring plug. There are companies, RCM and Fuji Racing, I think, although I think they might have withdrawn theirs, do an adapter plug that goes from the standard harness to like the likes of Injector Dynamics, sort of larger injectors like the ID1000s. They're as near as diameter bolt-in with sort of straight replacement. Obviously, it would need mapping, it would need tuning and setting up, but they're pretty easy to swap in and out. Right. Thoughts and experiences with JetX exhaust. I can't remember tuning one with a JetX exhaust, which is a good thing, because if it was really bad, I would have remembered. I'm not saying I haven't tuned one with it. I'm sure I have over the years. They've been going for a long time, JetX, so they know how to do stuff. Okay. In Greece, yeah. I moved to Italy. Yeah, the bigger turbo, and accept that there is some loss in the exhaust that you've got on there, and then that way you'll hit the power targets that you want. Right, hi Wes. Any chance I can pay you to spend a day watching you map cars to learn from you hands-on? I've paid for online courses, but real-world experience is definitely going to be better. This is what I say to the guys in the academy. I don't teach classroom mapping 101 or whatever it is. If you want theory and all the rest of that, then do the HP Academy courses. They're really good. I haven't done them. I haven't needed to do them. All my experience is real world. It's what actually happens to a car in the real world, how you can fix it with a map, how you can identify an issue with the ECU, with the data logging. So it's just all real world. Real world, in my view, always trumps the classroom. The academy, that's what it's there for. So there's lots of videos in there that I've, some of the videos that I do and release, generally, there's also a much more detailed, probably double the length version. If you can believe it, some of the videos that I've done are like 20 minutes, but I think in the academy, some of them are 45 minutes, and it's just going through step by step of what I'm doing every step of the way. Some of the guys from the academy come up to the dyno, spend the day with me there, sit in the car, look at what I'm doing, I explain what I do. I don't charge them for that. I'm happy to share the knowledge. So, if you want to bring me a, pack of biscuits or whatever, then great. But join the academy. But there's a lot of information in there, and the Discord group where people are sort of chatting all day long, every day, different time zones. They're all over the world, and the behind the scenes stuff is all in there. Right, Moshiko, everything is good. Yeah. Continuation to answer about ignition time and fueling. When tuning ignition, would I see a change in the AFR? Yeah, you can do. Yeah, so if you're tuning like I teach from a low ignition base, just to create yourself a bit of a safety margin while you're learning and experimenting, then as you're adding ignition time in, the spark is getting more efficient, and you will often see the air fuel ratio sort of lean out slightly. We're not talking huge amounts, but it will lean out slightly because there's not so much wasted fuel. So yeah, you will see a change, but not massive. Right. James, hey Duncan. Quick question, please. I've got one of those cheap blue blow-off valves, which sounds good, but you don't need to ask me that question. You know my opinion. The cheap blue blow-off valve. If it's not leaking at the moment, it will do, and your car will start stalling coming up to junctions. It will start leaking boost. It will start running very rich. And after a while you get fed up of those issues and put on the standard one, which never breaks. I say never breaks. In 19 years of tuning Subarus, I've had one faulty standard blow-off valve. They don't break. The springs are better. They're better made. The cheap ones, fine. If you want to put it on, then I'm not going to knock you. I've put on dump valves on my own cars. Now I tend to just blank them off completely, although on the SH I haven't. That's just entirely standard. If you like the sound, keep it on. If you don't like the sound, put the standard one back on. Hi Duncan, I've been using NF nitrous formula for a number of years. Was there any point? Yeah, I haven't done a back-to-back test on those. I think it does reduce detonation a bit, otherwise they couldn't claim that it does, but whether it does it enough to wedge yourself into actually using it, personally, I think it would be better to check whether it's detting without the nitrous formula. So make a set of the det cans that I say, bolt those onto the engine like I've shown in numerous videos, and actually listen for detonation. If it's not detting, then, you know, unless you're doing a track day and you're absolutely kicking his head in all day long, then I wouldn't be chucking a bottle of that in my tank every time. Nikos, there's a join button below, or on my YouTube page, click on membership, I think it is, and there's options in there. Base level is supporter, but at that level you don't get access to the extra videos or the Discord group. If you sign up as an Academy member or above, then you get access to all the videos, the Discord group, the extra live chats and all those sort of things. I do a live stream most weeks, unless I'm like in a different part of the country or the world. I want to come from Germany to see you working on cars. Yeah, come over, Patrick. It'd be cool. Zed, right, the coming map today, EJ power plant with Cyvex. No, it's EJ20 with a GT3076 turbo, rotated. What is it rotated? Yeah, it's difficult because the engine's the wrong way round, but yeah, it wasn't a standard position turbo, external wastegate. No silencers in the exhaust, Cybex ECU, obviously, rear wheel drive, as you could see in the video, and it is a brutal car, 700 kilos. I couldn't get it to grip the wheels on the dyno, just the rear wheels, but probably around the 500-ish, 550, around that sort of level, which at 700 kilos is very quick. He uses it for charity rides on track days and those sort of things, and he's got 2 passengers. There's a passenger either side of the main driver's seat, which is in the middle. Awesome to drive. Not sure I'd want to be a passenger in it, although I'm going to be going out in it in a couple of weeks' time. So I might get the GoPro running for that. Right, so where are we at? Yeah, pedals and white line anti-roll bars, drop links, roll correction kit, lateral arms. After listening to you, I'm sorry, I'll cost people a fortune. Well, the geometry set up, point you in the direction of how bad your brakes are. Yeah, that is the journey. So you sort the suspension and the handling out, and then you carry in more speed to the next corner, and then your brakes are going to be letting you down. Personally, I would upgrade the brakes first before sorting out power and all the rest of it, but yeah, it's bigger brakes. Yeah, serious power to weight. It is mental, and he does drive it hard. So yeah, if you see it at a track day, it's probably gone past you. Right, how are we doing? Is there anyone asked a question that I haven't answered yet? If there is, then I apologise, but I'm struggling to read this. Let me put my glasses on. No, I think we're all up to date. If you've got any other questions, then pop it in the comments below. I will reply. It might take me a couple of days, but I will reply. Oh. Okay, no, I did miss one question. Right, waiting for the HKS catted down pipe and then to tune it without to get some better flow and also a good tune. The car is kind of stuttering when the load is big. Okay, it's probably stuttering because the boost is it's probably going way past the boost target and then holding itself back. Could well be that. If it's fuel related, then yeah, obviously don't go through that stuttering until you've got the tune checked. But probably boost related at this point. If you're waiting for it and you want to be able to put your foot down, then easy way to do it is just connect the turbo to the wastegate with a single hose rather than through the boost solenoids, and that will just give you wastegate pressure, and then you can put your foot down. Right. Right, okay. Experience with carburetor in Mert Mod. I want to try Diamond Mod and 32-bit. Do you have any experience with it? Do you see it as a viable upgrade to Mert Mod? Right, I have to be honest here, and I haven't tried Diamond Mod or Mert Mod on my own personal cars, and as such, I wouldn't put it on a customer's car until I've tested it on my own. In my eyes, it's just a little bit experimental for me to put that onto a customer's car without fully knowing all the bits around it. So if they're wanting speed density on a 32-bit ECU or needing speed density on a 32-bit ECU, then I tend to use ECU Tech because it's tried and tested, and the support from Ecotech is very good. Not saying that Mod or Mod are issues or have issues, but I have seen issues with people that have been running it, and because of that I couldn't hand on heart do that on a customer's car. So that's my experience with it. Okay, right, I'm gonna call it now. If you got any questions, pop it in the comments below. If not, I will see you for another session next week. Thank you very much. Cheers.